Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Gretchen Myron. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a Director of Inclusion here at the NCAA. We're thrilled that you're able to attend the webinar this afternoon focused on acrobatics and tumbling, one of 6 emerging sports for women as part of our summer webinar series from the Office of Inclusion. With me today from the NCAA side of things is my colleague, Ashleisha Lakonde. Ash, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Ash. I serve as the Assistant Director of Inclusion at the NCAA with a primary focus on women and gender equity. Thank you for joining us today. Just a quick housekeeping item. If you are interested in asking a question, there's a Q&A section here. Please use that chat feature to post your questions, and we'll answer that at the end of the webinar as well. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it back to Gretchen.
Great, thank you. Before we start diving into acrobatics and tumbling a little bit more, we did want to provide a brief overview about the Emerging Sports for Women program and what that looks like at the NCAA level. So for those of you that aren't familiar, the Emerging Sports for Women program was created in the early 1990s from a recommendation from the Gender Equity Task Force. The intent of the program is really to try to help grow new participation opportunities for women at the collegiate level. Since the program's inception, 5 sports have transitioned from emerging sports status to championship status, which you'll see on the slide there. Several of these, as you are probably aware, are very successful NCAA sports now, with championships that continue to grow and participation numbers that have also grown as well over the years, which is awesome. We're also in an exciting time where we do have several emerging sports that are getting closer and closer to championship status, and so we hope to see that trend continue. The Emerging Sports for Women program is overseen by the NCAA Committee on Women's Athletics, which is an association-wide committee with representatives from all 3 divisions. That committee's intent and purpose is really to focus on different issues within athletics that pertain to women specifically. And so creating more participation opportunities to continue to close that gap is one of the reasons why they're so closely involved with the Emerging Sports for Women program. They oversee this program and throughout the year receive several updates related to emerging sports. Each of the 6 current sports provides biannual updates to the committee about their progress, any challenges, what they're seeing, and then the committee has an opportunity to provide feedback to those sports about different opportunities that might exist to continue to help growing them. The committee also is able to make recommendations to the division, such as adding or removing sports, but really it is up to each division to help oversee which sports are part of their profile. So in addition to acrobatics and tumbling, which we're going to talk more about in just a moment here, there are 5 other emerging sports: equestrian, rugby, stunt, triathlon, and women's wrestling. We have hosted webinars for all of those this summer, so we're a little over halfway through and have some others coming up as well. All of these are being recorded, so if you have to jump off today or want to make sure your colleague sees this afterwards, those will be available at a later time too. So now that you have a little bit of a background on both the Emerging Sports for Women program and CWA, we would love to talk more about acrobatics and tumbling itself. I think we have a short video that we're going to be able to share with you all before we bring on Janelle Cook from NCATA.
Acrobatics and tumbling provides unique varsity opportunities for women to compete in college athletics. Gymnasts of all disciplines and cheerleaders love this exciting sport, and your fans will too. A meet features 6 events, including acro or stunning, pyramids, tosses, tumbling, and a team event set to music. Fiscally responsible with a large roster size and utilizing your existing facilities, your institution can address enrollment and gender equity by adding this NCAA emerging sport. Contact the NCATA and visit thencata.org for more information.
All right.
Great, thank you. Always fun to see that. Janelle, go ahead and take it away, and then we'll have some administrators coming on a little bit later to share more about acrobatics and tumbling at their institution as well.
Thank you, Gretchen. I really want to start off by thanking the NCAA and Gretchen and Ash for hosting these webinars so that we can share more information about emerging sports with the membership. And all of you participating today, thank you for your interest, and that if you're watching the recording later on, thank you for your interest in learning more about acrobatics and tumbling specifically. My name is Janelle Cook. I'm the Executive Director of the NCATA. I am a former athletic administrator at the University of Oregon primarily, and I was a collegiate softball player. So jumping into the world of gymnastics and cheerleading was a new thing for me, but I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to oversee the growth of the sport for over a decade now. A little bit about the NCATA, our governing body, the National Collegiate Acrobatics and Tumbling Association. That we are a nonprofit that was formed in 2010. The competition format for acrobatics and tumbling was actually created in 2009. And there's a real fun origin story to acrobatics and tumbling that I'll share a little bit more with you about. But the NCATA was created by athletic administrators and collegiate coaches. We oversee the collegiate A&T governance. We have a key partnership with USA Gymnastics, and they oversee youth acrobatics and tumbling governance. A little bit about that origin story. That's really, truly a unique story and a fun sports story. But coaches and administrators back in 2008 identified a need for opportunities that would serve a population of young women whose interests and abilities were not being met. So the sport was designed at the collegiate level, which is pretty rare, in the NCAA model to create new pathways for gymnasts of various disciplines that maybe weren't served by the NCAA artistic gymnastics opportunities, and cheerleaders who at the time did not have any access to varsity intercollegiate competition. So they created a new format based on the athleticism and the dynamic nature and the team aspects of cheer, and they blended it with the precision, execution, and the structure of gymnastics. So I could go on that for a long time, but I'll keep moving. But it's a great story, and happy to share more with you about that. You see there on the slide some of the sponsorship numbers from 22-23. We're anxiously awaiting last year's sponsorship numbers. So you can see where our membership has been during that time. But today we're up to 52 members, NCAA members who are currently sponsoring the sport who have announced the addition of the program. We expect to have 45 to 46 programs competing this spring that will meet sport sponsorship requirements, and a handful who are beginning their programs with limited competition as they continue to recruit. What's probably most significant in the difference between the numbers from 2023 to now is that we've grown significantly in Division I. We're up to 11 Division I members, and in Division III as well, so up to 11 there. So we're growing. We had obviously a big boom there in Division II, and we're now seeing that growth in Division I and Division III as well to match it. A little bit about the participants of acrobatics and tumbling and some stats there with regard to demographics. The great thing, again, about this sport was that it was inclusion of various types of athletes from different sport backgrounds, and as well as athletes with different heights and athletic builds was central to the formation of the sport, and having a home for athletes that, again, weren't being served by the existing opportunities at the time. So you're going to see athletes coming from all kinds of gymnastics disciplines. We'll run through those a little bit more. And they're also coming from the world of cheerleading. We have a very inclusive demographic pool in terms of our diverse racial and ethnic minority backgrounds. Our averages are similar to the averages for all NCAA women's sports. But what we're excited about is that our data is showing that the broader representation of those racial and ethnic minorities is trending up a few percentage points each year. So we're growing in terms of diversity each year. Something that is also unique, and probably not terribly unique to other emerging sports as well, is that we represent, this is a national opportunity to recruit, and athletes are coming from all over the country. In 22-23, 46 states and 9 different countries were represented on acrobatics and tumbling rosters. The top 3 states that we saw for participating student athletes were coming from Texas, Pennsylvania, and California. So you can see spread out all across the country. And over 60% of the rosters are comprised of out-of-state student athletes. So again, you're going to draw locally, but you're also going to have some national draw for athletes to come compete in this sport as well. These are high-achieving academic individuals. We've had great statistics from participation at the college level in terms of campus community service, representation on campus SAC, and all of the good things that everyone would like to see from their student athletes. Another fact that's not related to student athletes, but one that we're very proud of, is that 98% of our head coaches are women. And so in addition to creating opportunities for female student athletes, we're also creating opportunities for women to coach. And that's been something that happened pretty organically, but we've been really excited to see that, and have really invested a lot of time and energy in helping to grow that coaching pool and to support women in coaching with other organizations, with the NCAA, We Coach, and beyond. All right, our next slide. So a little bit about the roster potential. One of the great things about creating a sport was that the founders were very intentional about being able to create a lot of participation opportunities and a roster that could help bring in, a larger number of female student athletes. So you can carry up to 45 student athletes. Some carry a few more than that as well. Our maximum meet day roster is 28. Participants can specialize. So that's the wonderful thing about the sport, is you don't have to be the all-around athlete. You can specialize in an event or even in one heat. And then you'll also see athletes that are going to be competing throughout the meet and able to do, more of an all-around athlete participation. Most squads, it's not uncommon to see different starting lineups throughout the year. So again, we did not want to have a situation where we had, just 28 athletes or 24 competing, and not seeing that broader participation and those opportunities for athletes that may have special skills that relate to acrobatics and tumbling. Just a note for sports sponsorship, the minimum for NCAA sports sponsorship is legislated at 18. And that's also a safety quality to the sport in terms of having a roster of 18 or more. That because of the requirements of specifically of team event, but of the entire meet, it's great to have a broad roster from which to choose from. So really kind of think about the variety of athletes that you may have on a football squad or on a track and field squad when it comes to creating a roster. We touched on those recruiting bases a little bit. So everyone's very familiar with artistic gymnastics, especially right now, as we're watching the amazing men's and women's teams compete in Paris. But we also are serving the acrobatic gymnastics population, which does not have competition in the Olympics, but is large competitions internationally. Trampoline and tumbling, excuse me, which you may have watched as well. And then also youth acrobatics and tumbling. Within cheerleading, there's also different disciplines. So you have all-star or competitive cheer, high school cheer and stunt, and then sideline cheerleading. And acrobatics and tumbling rosters are pulling student athletes from all of those different disciplines. In addition to that, we've had just kind of all-around athletes that have come and learned the sport. Many have competed in track and field, powerlifting, dance, diving, and then we have a lot of multi-sport athletes. The great thing about artistic gymnastics is that they have a junior Olympic program, and they also have an Excel program, which is designed to be less time consuming training program and competition program. And those are often athletes that wouldn't see an opportunity to compete in NCAA gymnastics. So it's wonderful because the athletes that are the high level athletes that are going to compete in the NCAA are still going to have those opportunities, and acrobatics and tumbling would not draw from those athletes, but they would help provide opportunities for the women that maybe aren't quite at the NCAA artistic level, or those participating in the Excel program that would like to have a competitive collegiate career as well. Just a kind of a fun fact to give you the idea of the number of athletes participating this year. As of last week when we finalized the PowerPoint, we had 508 athletes that will be joining NCATA member institutions this fall. So we're seeing those participation numbers really grow, and it's been very inspiring. Okay, next one. We are focusing right now on growing any way that we can, of course. We would love to be able to continue to create regional travel partners for our current members. So that's where a lot of our effort is currently going. Right now, that's reflected in trying to grow in the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Hawaii, and also in the Midwest near some of our more recent additions in South Dakota and Missouri. And then, of course, also we have one member down in Florida. So we'd like to try to grow with institutions around those institutions that don't currently have a travel partner. But we are seeing divisional growth and interest in each division, like I mentioned before. In Division 1, we've seen a lot of interest recently from non-FBS schools, which has been great. In Division 2, we've grown really regionally and through our 2 Division 2 conferences. And in Division 3, we have seen a lot of growth that's honestly spread out around the country. So we're trying to focus there in, again, creating those travel partnerships. Another area that we're really focused on in Division 2 is reaching the threshold for a divisional championship, which was recently changed to 35 in Division 2. So once we reach the emerging sport goals and championship status, hoping to move quickly to also host a Division 2 NCAA championship down the line. Our competition format, you saw a lot about that in the video, but we are a spring seasonal competition. Most teams are competing in anywhere from 6 to 10 meets. Our first date of competition is February 1st, and our season runs through the end of April when our NCAA National Championships are hosted on a member campus. There's a minimum of 6 competitions. We have duals and tri-meets, so either 2 or 3 teams competing at a time. The meet time frame runs anywhere from 90 minutes to 120 minutes. We have 6 total events and 20 heats, and teams are competing one at a time on one apparatus, which is just the mat. So excuse me. Another important thing is something that's a little bit unique in terms of how we've approached the emerging sport process is that all of our NCAT members are sponsored as varsity programs. And so that was something that was important at the time as we were establishing a new sport to make sure that we could achieve Title IX compliance. If you're watching the meet, you're going to see a scoring system similar to gymnastics. So athletes and their coaches have designated skills that they have planned in advance to compete. And then those skills are judged on a deduction system. So looking at, all the things you're hearing at the Olympics. So if their legs are straight, if they held their position, if they were moving on the landing or stepped out of bounds, all of those great things. In the flow of a meet, one team comes out and competes, another steps on the floor. All of the heats within an event are competed, and then scores are announced at the end of the event. One thing that's important in terms of competition to mention, and relates a little bit to budget, which we'll talk about as well, is that the NCATA creates the minimum schedule for all members to make sure that everyone is going to meet their minimums and be able to stay within their budget for travel. And then teams have the opportunity to schedule additional meets similar to conference scheduling and non-conference scheduling in other sports. All right, next slide. A little bit about our current championship structure. So we use the collegiate championship model, meaning that all of our teams now are competing across all divisions, similar to how we will as we move forward in the NCAA collegiate championship process. We have 8 teams that qualify for a single elimination tournament, and then we also have event finals, and there are 5 qualifiers or 5 entrants in 15 of the heats from a meet. As I mentioned before, these are held in late April, and they are held on a member campus and streamed on ESPN+. We also have 2 conference championships. Currently, the Mountain East Conference and Conference Carolinas in Division 2 sponsor acrobatics and tumbling as a conference championship sport and have been hosting championships that are modeled after the NCAA championships with a single elimination team competition and event finals. A fun development in the last few years is that our Division 3 institutions, as those institutions have grown, have created a Division 3 postseason invitational that's also modeled after the NCAA championships and invites all the Division 3 members to participate if they choose. The teams are selected based on a committee that follows a model, of the NCAA in terms of a selection committee. So looking at, head-to-head competitions, record, season scoring, average scoring, and the total body of work of the season as well. Event finals were created to allow more participation opportunities. They're honestly my favorite part of the season and of the championships, because we get to see a really incredible variety of skill and athleticism. And it also allows opportunities for specialists and at large qualifiers from teams that did not qualify to have an opportunity to compete for a championship. And again, if you can win a national championship in an event, it brings great recognition to the student athletes and the institutions, if they're maybe not challenging for that team competition. So it's a fun event. Hopefully you've had a chance to watch and see that there. As you think about facilities on your campus, acrobatics and tumbling is competed in your basketball or volleyball arena. There are 13 2-inch carpet bonded foam mats that lay out on the floor. We have a great guide to how that all gets set up. Practice can take place in the competition arena. It can also take place in practice courts. We've had institutions get very creative and also take small groups to racquetball courts or other facilities within athletics or the recreation center on campus. Depending on what they're practicing, they may need a higher ceiling clearance. So if they're practicing toss that day, that's a great time to use a racquetball court. If they're tumbling or working on, core work or different things, they can practice in like a rec room or some of the different facilities on campus. Again, the founders, even though there is a little overlap with the winter sports, really tried to consider hosting as a spring sport to avoid the overlap with all the indoor winter sports. All right, on our general budgetary impact, the primary budgetary considerations, especially for getting a program started, relate to recruiting, equipment, just mats and apparel, and travel for competition. Those are really the biggest areas of spending, outside of course, salary and scholarship and those institutional funding decisions. Again, because they're competing and training in existing facilities, there's no budgetary impact related to new facilities. The equipment that I mentioned, the only thing that's required for competition are those 13 carpet bonded foam mats, but additional mats and other things can be purchased as the program grows. There's a lot of different things that coaches always desire more equipment and supplies, but that's the only equipment that's required to get started. Uniforms are coming through your current apparel provider and are typically the volleyball uniform. So a long sleeve shirt or a short sleeve shirt that's fitted and a bike short that's fitted as well. And then again, I mentioned the schedule earlier, but it's something that's really important to us that we can help institutions stay within their budgetary needs for scheduling. And so we work really hard to make sure that we can create a schedule that meets those needs. And those are the primary impacts on budget as you consider having this on campus. On our next slide, we'll talk about our coaching, education, and pipeline. So we first, starting with the education, the NCATA hosts a NCATA summit annually each summer for coaches education, with so modeled after, again, typical coaches conventions, with on the mat training, guest speakers, peer presentations, as well as updates to scoring and all the various documents for the NCATA. We also have ongoing virtual education throughout the year. For example, this year we partnered with Dan Tudor to help with recruiting education, and he did a series with our coaches throughout the fall and spring. We also have an NCATA mentor program that pairs veteran coaches with new coaches to make sure that they can get off to a great start. We also have a program that we call 3P that's modeled after the WBCA, So You Want to Be a Coach program, that provides opportunities for graduating student athletes to come participate in the NCATA summit to gain training and network and get prepared to apply for those coaching positions. Our coaches are coming from gymnastics, they are coming from cheerleading, and they're also coming from acrobatics and tumbling, both individuals who have coached at the youth level or participated as an athlete in college and collegiate acrobatics and tumbling and continued on to become coaches. On our next slide, we'll talk a little bit again about national governing body collaboration and support. We are a little unique in that, again, this was created at the collegiate level and outside the traditional Olympic sports system. And so the NCATA partners with USA Gymnastics regarding the governance of acrobatics and tumbling. So the NCATA governs the collegiate side, and USA Gymnastics serves as the governing body for developmental A&T, which is the youth program that's developing. We work together to promote the sport. They're very supportive at both levels. We have events that take place for youth at our national championships. So we work hand in hand with them to ensure that both the collegiate and the youth piece continue to grow for acrobatics and tumbling. All right, talking a little bit about onboarding. So starting an acrobatics and tumbling program, and our wonderful administrators that are here today can help you answer questions as you think through them. But that varies by institution. So we have had institutions that have, got started in 6 months. We have others that have taken, 18 to 24 months to get started. Really, what we will do is work with you to find the best solution that works for your institution and support you to make sure that whatever timeline is needed for your institution is one that can be accomplished with the team. Of course, the ideal timeline would be a year for the coach to recruit prior to competition, and that's certainly what we recommend. But if there's a more immediate need, we can work with you to execute a plan based on your needs from implementation through operation. All right, a little bit more just before I close, I just wanted to say that we are really lucky to have a really collaborative membership. And that has been the success of acrobatics and tumbling and why the sport has grown the way that it has. We are really fortunate to be able to provide quality opportunities through the lens of the student athlete and have institutions that value that and want to make sure that they're providing really high quality opportunities for women. We are a small organization, but our primary focus is providing direct support to the administrators, coaches, and officials of the NCATA. Again, we recognize the challenges out there in the world of college sports today. And so we are really try to make sure that we're doing things in a manner that's fiscally responsible, but also, again, is really focused on the student athletes and creating opportunity for them to not only pursue their athletic aspirations, but to go and get a quality education and leave with a degree. And so really creating those student athlete experiences is our top priority and the passion of everybody that works at the NCATA. So that is all of our slides. And I am going to let Ash, I think, prepare the Q&A and get that started.
Perfect. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Dr. Asher again. We have two incredible administrators from two institutions who sponsor A&T. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then I have a couple of questions for them. Also, if you have any questions, this is a good time to put in the chat, and we will answer those questions at the end as well.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Haley Martin. I am the Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics here at Limestone University in Gaffney, South Carolina, Division II institution in the South Atlantic Conference, but we compete acrobatics and tumbling in Conference Carolinas. We started acrobatics and tumbling in 2017 and have enjoyed it ever since. So I look forward to answering some questions for those of you that are considering adding this awesome sport for women to your institutions.
Hi, everyone. Matt Klavosky, Director of Athletics at Iona University in New Rochelle, New York. Division I member of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. And this is our third year, going into our third year sponsoring acrobatics and tumbling. It's been a terrific addition to our varsity portfolio, and there's just some terrific benefits to the program that I'm happy to share and looking forward to the continued growth. So thank you for having me.
Perfect. Thank you. So I just have 3 questions for you. If you want to take them one at a time, that'll be great. Just want your perspective on the benefits of sponsoring acrobatics and tumbling at your campus and institutions. the lessons you've learned sponsoring the sport, and then any items that you would want schools to consider as they sponsor the sport. So this is your time. So if you want to both go at the same time, or you can take it one by one, either way works for us.
I'll go ahead and start. So the benefits at a small institution like ours in at Limestone, we are an enrollment-driven institution. And as Janelle mentioned, the roster can carry anywhere from 45, competing roster of 28. We have had upwards of 43 on our roster. And this year we will be reporting or starting with 35. Just alone the benefits of a high roster sport that has a low discount rate, but a high net tuition revenue generating sport has been 100% beneficial for a school like Limestone University, like I said, who is an tuition enrollment driven university. But besides all of that, I think the number one benefit has been the type of student athletes that we have been able to bring to our institution. The profile of the young women who are competing in the sport of acrobatics and tumbling. They all typically come in with very high GPAs, wonderful student athletes, and they have been wonderful additions, like I said, to our university and our institution. Just alone in their GPAs that they bring in and the GPAs that they continue to obtain while they are here. And then the willingness to get involved in various campus activities and different things that we offer here. So 100% has been beneficial to our institution, and we have an overall institution competition that we call the President's Cup, and our acrobatics and tumbling team actually won that last year. So they came in, like I said, 2018, I think was our first year competing because we went through a recruiting year. And they came in guns a-blazing and have been wonderful additions, wonderful competitors, and great coaches as well that we have been able, and staff members that we have been able to add to our department who are just willing to get out and support every other sport on campus and to be great team players. But again, like I said, I understand right now too the enrollment cliff, and most college presidents, university presidents are going to be asking you, what is your ROI on your sports? If you're bringing in and adding something to maybe help bolster enrollment in the face of that enrollment cliff that all higher education is about to face, I would say acrobatics and tumbling is a go. And I would be willing to answer any questions, speak to any of you individually about net tuition revenue and, how we've been able to keep that discount rate down with a large roster as well.
Well, those are all great points and a lot of the same points that I was going to share. So, I'll echo a lot of what Haley said. It's been a terrific addition here at Iona, much like Haley shared, and I think most mid-major institutions in the country, as we look at the uncertainty of higher education. How do we make an impact from an enrollment standpoint, be a good campus partner? This was part of a period of growth for us, and so we added several sports. And acrobatics and tumbling has been just a terrific addition. Like I said, we're going into year 3. We had 24 student athletes in year 1. We'll look to compete with a starting roster of 35 this year with intentions to grow beyond that in the coming years. I would agree. I think, certainly from a discount rate standpoint and a return on investment, there are so many benefits, which I think from a presidential standpoint make a lot of sense in terms of looking at this as a potential sport to add to your varsity portfolio. Beyond that, I'll just say that I think there's been a great excitement around the sport. I think, we have a growing performing arts program here at Iona, and there's a terrific synergy between the acrobatics and dance, acrobatics and tumbling program and our dance and cheerleading programs. And so I've found that, they share a lot of the same practice space, and we've seen just a great camaraderie between the programs. So I think there's an opportunity for growth there as well. And I also think that what I've been really impressed with is just the level of support from other programs and the camaraderie between the teams within the competition. We were fortunate enough to send some of our student athletes to the national championships this year, and they came back and talked about the level of support from their peers, the other student athletes and coaches at the national championship. So I think there's a great energy within the sport right now, and everybody's pulling for each other. I think we're seeing more and more schools adding really every day, which I think is really exciting for the future of the program. So know that you're adding a sport that's going to have great support. It's going to have people that are truly invested in your success. And I think, again, much like Haley shared, I'm happy to jump on and talk with administrators, with coaches, anyone who's interested in adding the sport, because it's just been a terrific addition. And we're fairly new, but I could not be more impressed with the student athletes, the coaches. They are so invested, terrific ambassadors on campus. And again, I've just seen just a great level of support from our student athletes and the level of interest in our acrobatics and tumbling program, because it is unique. It is different than any other sport that we have here on campus. And I think that's great. I think it offers a real level of exciting diversity. We've got student athletes representing all different states within the United States. And that's just really exciting, I think, in terms of not only the program itself, but what it adds to the culture of our athletics department. So just so many benefits to speak of. And I think there's a real exciting future that we're all invested in seeing succeed. So happy to help and support in any way.
The second bullet point that we have, lessons learned sponsoring the sport. I come from a very unique background. And so my ascent, I would say, to the chair of athletic director, again, very unique. I was a collegiate cheerleader myself, competitive cheerleader, and was our university cheer coach. And 2012, we had the opportunity to attend, myself and our senior woman administrator at the time, to attend the NCATA Nationals at Baylor University in 2012. Decided then that this was a very unique, wonderful opportunity. Loved how entertaining the sport was. As a cheer coach, and Janelle knows this, and I've shared this several times, I had my concerns as well, because, you're thinking, well, here's going to be a potential NCAA sport. What happens, to my team? What is going to happen maybe to my sport if an institution is looking at maybe possible budget cuts, what have you. But what I quickly learned is how valuable having both a competitive cheer program and an acrobatics and tumbling program is to our institution. Again, I spoke on our high numbers. Once we added this sport, it helped our competitive cheer program as well, because we ran them both the same way when it came to scholarships, rosters, and what have you. So again, it grew my sport, competitive cheer at my institution. Because of both competitive cheer and acrobatics and tumbling, we now have close to anywhere, a good year, 75 female student athletes on our campus that are able to have the benefits of which one that they want to choose. Our acrobatics and tumbling coach and our cheer coach work so well together. They recruit together, and attend various different combines and what have you together. And it's just unique because we give students an opportunity to choose which one they would rather be a part of. And like I said, we have just found such great success that I have actually, like myself, I wish I had someone, who had been like Fee Mulkey as well, who came from the background of competitive cheer, to kind of talk me off the ledge too, and say, no, this is not to take the place of one or the other. This is to help bolster opportunity and give our female student athletes an opportunity to choose and have more to choose from and more opportunities. So it's just been wonderful for us. And again, if you have a cheer coach that's maybe coming to you and saying, no, this is going to kill competitive cheer, or this is going to kill this is going to kill that, I guarantee you it will not, if done correctly. And I would be willing to help make sure that both programs can be successful, and kind of give you some background on how we did that and how it is just, again, benefiting our institution from the enrollment standpoint and the net tuition revenue standpoint. So that's just my little tidbit on that.
No, it's a great point, and I'll just share that, I think initially we also, I think there was some questions around how does this impact our competitive cheer and dance programs, and I think certainly something that we learned is, to kind of go in and have some intentional conversations about how do we work together and how do we build off this growth. And I think one of the exciting things that we've seen over the last year that we'll look to continue to grow in the coming year is just the level of excitement around the program when it comes to competitions. Our crowds have been really impressive, and I think we've pulled from a lot of different community groups. Because the sport pulls from so many different disciplines, there's an opportunity to engage a lot of youth in the area, gymnastics and cheerleading and competitive dance and so many others. And so as we look at all of our sports in terms of how do we increase the visibility, how do we tell the story of what's going on our campus, how do we talk about all the amazing things, a lot of times that comes through the filter of sports. And what we found is that, again, by leveraging the platform of our acrobatics and tumbling competitions, we can really engage the community and get a lot of people excited to come to campus that maybe otherwise wouldn't. And so we've kind of used that as a learning opportunity that we'll look to expose in the coming years, is how do we again tell this great story of what's happening on campus, and how do we engage people that maybe aren't currently engaged. And I think acrobatics and tumbling provides a unique opportunity to do that. So again, so many unique things that we've kind of learned over the course of just really our first year of competition, that I think speaks really well for the future of the program.
I think the other items for schools to consider, Janelle and her staff do such a wonderful job, like she had mentioned earlier, about helping with regional scheduling, because I know that travel budgets and scheduling is a big deal. But the sport is growing so rapidly. If you are a school on the East Coast, I say without a question, you should think to add this, because again, our travel has been very minimal. We are very blessed to be in a conference as well. But our travel has been very minimal. And I can't say anything negative about the sport, and the NCATA. Super helpful. One of the things that I have had, some administrators that I have gone out and spoken to about adding the sport, I think one of the concerns is maybe coaching. I joked before we got on here that I don't think anyone tells you as an AD how much HR paperwork you'll be doing, and the coaching carousel, and how much hiring that goes on. But again, the NCATA, Janelle, they are wonderful. FEMOLKI, if you call and say, hey, I'm thinking about adding this, they will give you a list of names. Okay, this person is ready. This is a person that we think can help you grow and start your team. Another thing that, again, people have been really scared of is, well, maybe these young women or these coaches are coming and they don't have a lot of background. This might be their first coaching venture. Do not be scared of that. We, again, have had success with 3 coaches that this has been their first opportunity, and they have done an amazing job. It actually gives you, as an AD or SWA or administration, a little bit more time to get back and being able to mentor, because I feel like a lot of times we don't get to do that as much either in this chair. So it does give you that opportunity to really help mentor, help grow a new coach, and help train them how your institution is going to run, and what you expect. So I would say don't be scared of that, because there are people out there that are ready, willing, and will do a wonderful job in starting an acrobatics and tumbling program on your campus.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And I think that's one of the really encouraging things that I've seen during our journey of adding the sport. And again, we hosted the Coaches Summit at Iona this year, so I got an opportunity to interact with a number of the coaches. And I think there's a great support. There are terrific mentors within the sport that are willing to to help support and guide some of our younger coaches who are looking to break in. And again, I think it's in a sport that has so much potential for that reason. I would, a few other things that I think are just important to just be mindful of as you're looking to add the sport. And a lot of were talked about in Janelle's slides, but I think, again, just through our experience, there are different ways to approach how you support some of these areas. But, so much of how we impact student athlete experience is about the things that we control. And I think, sports medicine is a really important one, particularly because of the nature of the sport. And I think it's important to make sure that you connect with your sports medicine team and have a really strong plan in place to ensure that you can support acrobatics and tumbling, because certainly, like again, from a gymnastics standpoint and some of the other elements of the sport, it's really important that you have great support and really be mindful of the duration of practice and the way that they compete. Just really important to support from that category. And again, I think there are a lot of different ways to look at the practice space, but again, given the size of the roster and the nature of how they practice, again, just mindful of working with your facilities team. And I spoke with a number of schools that sponsored the sport, and there's a litany of different ways to be able to practice and to be creative with your facility space. And again, one of the advantage again is the sports competes a little bit later in the spring, so there's not as much overlap with your winter sports. There's a little bit, but it's not prohibitive in any sense. But again, just having a really good plan in place to ensure that you can support the practice needs of the team, and then ultimately where the team competes. One of the things that we did at Iona is we have a practice set of mats and we have a competition set of mats, and we found was much more conducive to our facility staff being able to accommodate and support the team because we do practice and compete in two different facilities. So again, some of the learnings that we kind of experienced over our first year that I think will benefit new programs as they look to add the sport.
Great. Thank you so much, Haley and Matt, for all of those amazing nuggets. I wrote down several different items, and I think it hopefully was helpful for many that were listening as well. It was also great to hear all three of you talk about just the really wide variety of opportunities that acrobatics and tumbling can provide to young girls and women that maybe they didn't have a chance to compete in college before. So that's incredibly exciting. We're going to get to the Q&A portion of our webinar in the last few minutes here. Please continue to submit questions if you haven't already, but we do have a couple to get started with. Janelle, I think I'll turn this question to you first. You provided some great detail and information about the wide recruiting pool that is available for potential athletes. Can you talk a little bit more about some of those specific positions that are filled within the team when they're competing, though? I know you mentioned different skill sets that are useful, so can you just talk about those in a little more detail?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. There's a few primary positions. We have bases who are keeping their feet on the ground and supporting athletes overhead. Those athletes are called tops, and they're doing a variety of skills, either connected with those bases or being tossed in the air and caught by the bases. And then we also have tumblers. And again, excuse me, athletes can do all of those. We have several that do all three positions, but you can specialize in a position as well. Kind of with regard to the skill set, it's right there in the name. We have acrobatic skills and we have tumbling skills, and those can be quite different. And you have athletes that maybe are phenomenal tumblers, but they don't cross over and compete in the acro portion, where they're teaming up with others in small groups. In the acro portion, if you can think of like Cirque du Soleil, if you haven't seen, you saw a little bit in the video, but it's a hybrid of gymnastic skills and cheerleading skills in those acro and pyramids portions or events. In our toss event, it's what you'd be familiar with seeing in a cheerleading toss with a base group of 4 tossing, an athlete in the air. And then tumbling is tumbling. We have synchronized heats. Kind of the cool part that is borrowed, or one of the hallmarks of cheerleading is the synchronization. So again, most of the time in gymnastics, you're seeing just one individual compete. So this is a unique part of the sport and allows for more participation. So there's a lot of synchronization. So we have synchronized tumbling and individual tumbling, and then team events, the final event, and that brings together all of the skills. So you're going to see requirements from all of the events mentioned. So acro, pyramid, toss, and tumbling. And we have standing tumbling and running tumbling. So it's a very, very wide variety of skills. And that hopefully answers the question in terms of the different positions.
Yeah, that was super helpful. Thanks so much. And I think it also emphasizes just the multiple different ways that student athletes can get involved in the competition, and some of the fun, exciting things about the event itself and the competition. So that was great. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
For Haley and Matt, I wonder if you both wouldn't mind sharing maybe a success story that you've had in the last year or two that really kind of cemented some of the reasons why you added acrobatics and tumbling. I know you've mentioned some of the great things related to student athletes, but anything in particular that sticks out to you that you're most proud of in the last few years?
I will share. So 2022, our acrobatics and tumbling team was able to compete at the University of Oregon, made it to the top 8. And but out of that, we had a open pyramid that was able to compete in event finals, and that group of young women actually won our very first national championship in a female sport for us. So that has been amazing to watch, and you know, the newest female sport on campus to be the actual first to win a national title for our department has been amazing. And so I would just say it comes from our coaches are trained very well when they go to their coaches summit during the summer, and again, just the support that the NCATA provides to our coaches so that they can really train these athletes. And again, going back to, you know, what Matt was saying about the athletic training, just kind of partner with that. You have to have a really good strength and conditioning program for these athletes as well. So making sure that your strength coach understands what type of program that these student athletes need to have, because it's just going to make all of the difference in the world.
Yeah, I'll just obviously we're fairly new, and so we're just, you know, completing our first year of competition. But I think one of the moments that I think was kind of that moment where it all clicked for us, and one of the things that I gained a great deal of respect and appreciation for was just how hard these student athletes work, how much they practice, the nature of their practices, and again, our team competes on our second campus, so they're not necessarily around all of our varsity student athletes all the time. They're really kind of practicing and preparing on another campus, and so I had the opportunity early on to go and just, you know, kind of spend a little bit of time with the team and watch them practice, and just really gain a great deal of appreciation for the technical skill and the work that went into preparing for their performances. And one of the things that we did to really kind of engage the community here at Iona is that the team put together a showcase for halftime of one of our women's basketball games. And for a new sport where most of the folks on campus were not familiar with what an acrobatics and tumbling competition looked like, it was really kind of a surreal moment as these student athletes got an opportunity to showcase their skills in front of a crowd for the first time. For our student athletes and for our fans in attendance, they had their first glimpse into what acrobatics and tumbling was like, and the energy and the excitement was palpable in the facility that night. And I think it really kind of created some amazing momentum that carried into their inaugural season here. So for me, that has been one of the coolest moments that we've had so far, just again because it felt like everything that had happened in the, you know, I guess the 18 months leading up to this, all kind of culminated in that one moment where these student athletes had an opportunity to really kind of, again, showcase their skills in front of a crowd for the first time. And everybody was just blown away by how much excitement and energy goes into these competitions. So that was a really cool and kind of poignant moment for us.
Yeah, those are both awesome and hard to top, but I'm sure you will find a way to in the next few years as well as your programs continue to grow. One other question I wanted to make sure we asked, several of you have mentioned just the great support that you get from NCATA from a coaching perspective, all of that work there. Janelle, I wonder if you might want to talk a little bit also about the help from NCATA on officiating and also the high numbers of women that you're seeing in officiating there, in addition to the high percentage of women coaches that you have too. Oh, I think you're on mute still.
I remembered to mute, which was a positive. So, yes, thank you for that question. Yes, the NCATA also is responsible for training and managing the pool of officials for NCATA meets. So most of those officials are coming from a gymnastics and cheer background, though we have, you know, some joining us from those other judged events that I mentioned, like diving, even skating, and those kinds of training that they have. But but we train them annually. Excuse me. We have head officials and execution officials. So the head officials responsible for running the meet. They are in charge of all the paperwork for the meet. They are watching, again, I mentioned a little bit that the teams are declaring prior to the meet what they're going to compete. So they're watching to make sure that things are being competed as stated, responsible for safety and kind of all the general operation of the meet. They also jump in for execution and the team event because there's so much going on. They need all three officials. We have two execution officials. One focuses on watching the tops and one focuses on watching the bases. And so they're again looking for all those execution deductions and technique. What we also do all of the scheduling and assigning of officials through Arbiter. So again, we work really hard to make sure that we're getting diverse panels, but also being mindful of costs. Just like our member institutions, our officials are from all over the country. So there is travel associated with having officials on campus as well. We, again, work with institutions to make sure that we're meeting the needs of their budgets. And then also making sure that, again, we can have diverse panels with people that are experienced as we're, training new officials, making sure all of that goes as smoothly as possible. So does that answer the officiating question, or is there kind of more looking?
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. Thanks. I know, as you all probably listening on and have experienced on campus, officiating is tough right now, sometimes numbers wise. So it's always great to hear about those programs to help build that pipeline and also help with scheduling too, from that perspective.
Yes, and we have, again, largely seen women come in, again, largely because that's the primary, gender within the pool of gymnastics and cheer officials right now. But we have a lot of great male officials as well. But it's been cool, again, to see them, and it's neat to see we have people that are at the highest levels of gymnastics and people that, that have only done cheer, but they come in, learn the sport, and bring their expertise. And again, we try to create panels based on that expertise to make sure we have good eyes across the board. We do an online training, and then we're also beginning in-person training. We got to do our first, thankfully, Matt, we're hosting Summit this year. We got to also run our first in-person officials training. So we're going to continue to grow those as we grow and the demand and interest grows as well. One of the challenging things, if I can go to a challenge in terms of adding, is again, depends on your region, the pool of officials within your area. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg situation. So if you do add, there may be officials nearby, but if not, we'll work really hard with our partners through various organizations to recruit officials that are within your area.
Great. Thanks so much, Nell. Super helpful. Well, we are right up to the hour. So just in the last minute that we have before we close it out, I wonder if each of you would want to leave us with either a final word or statement of what you would think about when you think about acrobatics and tumbling, if that's helpful. Don't all jump at once. Whoever wants to go
I'll start.
first.
I would just say it's been a terrific addition again to our program, and I've been so impressed with the student athletes and the coaches and their level of dedication, their work ethic. Terrific ambassadors, and there's just such a level of excitement that you get to see in the competition. So I think that's a word that kind of I always think of again. It's just the excitement, the uniqueness of the sport. It's a terrific one that we've been really proud to add.
I think I've said it several times. It's a very well-established organization that cares about the student athletes and is going to care about the growth and the opportunities for the student athletes. I think that, again, it's just been a wonderful partnership on our campus to be able to have an acrobatics and tumbling program, but also a very successful competitive cheer program. They can both live together and benefit your institution.
And I would probably just add that I said this a little bit in the introduction, but this is truly a labor of love and passion for the people that are involved. We have, like I mentioned, a small organization, but very committed to that student athlete experience. And we really, truly have wonderful membership. So I'll reiterate just that collaboration, working together, that support of each other that Haley and Matt both mentioned in their comments is truly from that passion. And it's cool the amount of former student athletes that we've seen go into coaching really, I think, speaks to the excitement, the passion, and the love of the sport, and the appreciation for the experience that they had as student athletes, and wanting to give that back and allow other women to have that opportunity. So it's, it gets thrown around a lot, but this is largely, we have a lot of great men involved, but largely women who created this and continue to support and run the organization for the benefit of women. And that's been a really beautiful thing to be part of.
Awesome. Great way to close. Thank you so much, Janelle, Matt, and Haley, for joining us today. Thanks everyone for listening on. We have recorded this webinar and we'll be getting that out to you all in the coming weeks. So if you had to drop or want to share this with your colleagues after the fact, you're welcome to do so. We'll also make sure that contact information is included on that time. We might be able to show it just quickly on the screen, but I know we're right over the hour. So thank you all so much again for joining us this afternoon. If there's anything else that we can help you with from an emerging sports perspective, please don't hesitate to reach out. But we hope this was helpful as you consider acrobatics and tumbling on your campus. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you again.